primary ignition.
This is Star Wars.
Look out!
Core World News.
You may fire when ready.
From the bright center of the galaxy, I'm Greg Skondak, and you're listening to Core World News, your hot news service providing in-depth coverage of the latest stories from every sector of the galaxy. This week, we join your hosts in the treetops of Kashyyyk for a special holiday episode of Core World News. Take it away, Ben.
All right, thank you, Rex. It is a beautiful weather here in Kashyyyk. It's very balmy. Some birds chirping. It's a nice place. It's good place.
Your trees are swaying in the wind.
Yep. That's right. There's lots of orbs glowing.
Yep. It's wonderful. I'm not at all
Someone just handed me an
furious about being cold. It's fine. It's good. It's all good.
Yeah, that's right. It's warm here.
Yep.
It's constant forest jungle. There's a bunch of Wookiees you can snuggle if you get cold. It's great. Yeah, so special edition here this week.
Yeah.
We're a little bit late on our holiday episode. This is sort of a tweener holiday episode, so I appreciate you holding out for it and listening to it. Adam, I think you had this idea, right? This was what we're gonna talk about, since it's a holiday of sorts. Let's talk about the
chosen one. Yeah, the chosen one.
That seems like a holiday-ish thing to talk about.
Yeah. So my idea, stolen from many other versions of this. One of my favorite things in the world is just drafting things. Like I play fantasy football every year, mostly just for the draft, and then I kind of like fall out about halfway through the season. I love the excitement of a draft, and I thought it'd be fun to do a couple rounds of a chosen one draft, where basically I'm gonna randomly select who goes, and we have to pick a character from Star Wars that we think is the chosen one. We're going to do 3 rounds of this, which means we'll get 9 picks in total. And my favorite thing about this is it's going to get real weird by the time we get to, probably after 3.
Yeah. So for other people, the premise here is that there has always kind of been a chosen one, but with recent entries into canon, there's a little bit of vagueness going on, and it could actually be other people.
Are you saying the prophecy were the chosen ones up for interpretation? Is that what you're telling me right now?
The prophecy misread the prophecy may have been. My favorite quote.
I'm excited for some holiday fun, guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's real loosey-goosey, and the goal is, you'll name your choice, and then you kind of have to make your argument. You have to make your argument and get creative. Don't be shy for picking something out of left field. And I will. We have not assigned draft ordering yet. I'm going to do that live on air.
How are you going to do this?
Well, I have my little random number generator on my phone, and I'm going to do an alphabetical order. I'm 1, Ben's 2, and Grant's 3. So I'm just going to do random number 1 through 3 and see who comes up first.
That sounds fair.
Oh, Grant. Grant gets first pick.
I am very excited for this.
And then Ben gets second pick, and I get third. We're gonna do snake order for people who are unaware of how a draft works. That's how you kind of make it fair for it goes. So basically, they'll go Grant, Ben, me, Ben, Grant, and so on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
We're in. This is a kind of, so we've been actually talking about this for 2 podcasts. We just get a chance to record it till now. But yeah, Grant has some interesting ideas about this, and I know he's very conflicted, and so I'm happy he's going first.
Oh, I'm gonna take someone right off the board right away.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make a pretty good argument for this too. And I don't think people are gonna suspect that I choose this character right away. And that's Rey. I'm choosing Rey right off the bat. And for 2, I think, major points I'd like to argue, which is my sort of thesis here is that obviously the prophecy goes back to first comes the day, then comes the night. After the darkness shines through the light, the difference, they say, is only made right by resolving of the gray and through refined Jedi sight. I have to say, I think Rey is trying to interpret the Jedi in a new way, and therefore looking deeply into Luke's teachings, the books, the sacred texts, everything about the Jedi, the history of the Jedi. And then in the last battle, she even says she's all the Jedi. And I feel like she has gleaned some sort of new knowledge from the entirety of the Jedi Order, the entire sort of knowledge base of the Jedi Order. And so I have that. And then also, many people might say Anakin's the chosen one, and there have been, obviously in the Plagueis novels and other sorts of media, it's talked about how Anakin could very well be the sort of creation of Sidious or in Plagueis, a sort of like dark creation, or just this strange, natural miracle. But it's argued kind of either way by the fan base and has been for a long time. And I would argue Rey is also a product of dark science and sort of, if you want to argue in that direction. So I would just say she also could be an anomaly in the Force, much like Anakin was, and should be treated as such. And thus, I pick Rey as a chosen one.
Wow. So I'm curious, what was the text that you read from?
I think it was like a Journal of the Wills. I think it's in the novelization of like The Force Awakens or something. It's like the first thing that's uttered before the sequels trilogy sort of begins in the novels, I believe.
Yeah. As much as the movies don't mess around so much with the Chosen One prophecy, the novelizations do bring it up a little bit. Yeah. It's in there. So I like that choice. I like that pick.
Yeah. I think, there's when I was doing just a little bit of research, because I'm like, all right, let me see if I can find how much of the prophecy I can find. Because there's no like, oh, and this is the actual prophecy. It's all hearsay. And there are some books, but a lot of it comes from Legends material. They talked about it a lot more in Legends, and canon has been delicate about how it sort of deals with that prophecy as they, created this sequel.
And I want to say it's in the Force Awakens novel that I found this, just at the prologue, I think, portion.
Yeah, okay. That's something to be said of why we're doing this, right? Like it's odd that you think about it. Like the first movie in the Skywalker saga, or first in terms of episode order, begins with a prophecy.
Yeah, we
get 9 movies in this entire saga, and still past the 9th movie, we can still do this, right? And I kind of appreciate that. I've talked about this before. I like the fact that we don't get a clean cut answers. Prophecies are one of my least favorite devices in pretty much anything you can do. But I appreciate a prophecy that's never actually completely dissected, right? Where it's not explained to you. So, yeah.
It's like even we've seen the outcome and we don't know the answer yet, which is fun. So I'm going second here, and I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit because sooner or later we have to talk about it.
You got to go with it's your first round. You got to do it.
Got to do it. I mean, so because pretty much all day long, I'm like, well, this isn't really a dialogue. You're just explaining why you like it, and I guess we could try and hack your theories to bits, but I know they're sound because it's you guys. But the answer is, the one back is like, yeah, but Anakin, right? Like, Anakin's the chosen one. If you Wikipedia it, that says the chosen one, and there's a picture of Anakin Skywalker there. There's, I've got a couple quotes here. The one if we want to go like scientific, a vessel of pure force, the chosen one will be more powerful than any Jedi in history. And that came from actually Plagueis, but so not necessarily canon. A Jedi will come to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. Could we not insert other likely chosen ones, or I guess debatable chosen ones? Could we not insert that into those same descriptions? I mean, like that's you totally could, but pure Force. Yeah. I'm just saying. Yeah. No, I know. It's. That's the fans might vote with you, honestly, Ben. I think it's the safest bet. Like you said, when you look it up in the Wikipedias and the visual dictionaries, it's Anakin Skywalker's picture is not far from chosen text. Yeah. Qui-Gon starts it off. He's like, "This is the chosen one." I mean, far be it from me to argue with Qui-Gon Jinn. You know what I mean? Right. And he thought it was true, but whatever. I'm just making the argument there. It's for a long time it's pointed towards Anakin, and then the sequels happened, and then it's like, well, not suddenly there's all these other ideas that that could possibly happen, because it's as soon as actually it's not even the sequels, is like as soon as we found out that Darth Sidious wasn't dead, that it was sort of that put a question mark on it. But sure does. Because it's like, it's supposed to destroy the Sith, and it's like, did he destroy the Sith? And like, if the Sith and the Jedi, I think we're getting, I guess bureaucracy had corrupted the Jedi at this point, and they were kind of getting bloated and obviously almost like policing the galaxy, and maybe that's what the whole prophecy was about, sort of taking out both sides. Bringing down the numbers of both light and dark, sort of balancing the Force.
And I mean, if you want to make the point that Anakin did that, basically, that makes perfect sense. That actually,
right. He boiled it down.
He did do that, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a horrific act, but it kind of plays to what the actual wording of the prophecy.
And that's the tough thing, right? With Anakin, I think the argument always is if he's a chosen one, it's less about like chosen one doesn't mean like you are this like thing of virtue. You are like the will of the Force embodied, right? And the Force wanted it. If you're arguing for Anakin, wanted it to be pure, like that. I always think about when we see the Jedi Order in the prequel trilogy. They aren't corrupt, but they are like two footsteps away from being corrupt, right? Like they're going down a dark path, and we see them go down that dark path all through that prequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you expect sort of when you see, hear Chosen One, this like shining knight that's flawless and comes and saves the day. Maybe a mythology that happens, but
and if you want to take the approach of the whole law of conservation of the Force sort of approach, all the Force then it becomes empowered. It's even stronger of a life force kind of running through the galaxy if all the Jedi are taken out, and there's only just a few Sith, and then you have Rey and Kylo rising and Kylo's stopping blaster fire and Rey is lifting like 100 rocks at once. It's like maybe the Force is just
right.
There's just strong at that point. Yeah.
And I will say, I do think, I mean, this is the other thing we don't really know about the nature of the Force, right? Which is also fantastic. But I do believe in a sort of that, there's a lot of talk of balance in the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the Chosen One prophecy interacts with balance. Like, so it's not predetermination. It's like you can still alter it, and Plagueis and Sidious altered the nature of the Force and created Anakin. But so if we know that happened, so it's like it could happen in other ways too. The Sidious was there to turn the Chosen One to the dark side, and so like the Force, I feel like evolves a little bit, and it's like, well, now it's there, and so these other good things will happen, or essentially you could argue that the prophecy gets kicked. There's a can that gets kicked down the road proverbially to other people later. But
well, that's really interesting. I like this idea. We'll get and something I haven't thought about, this idea of like the Force as this. You're talking about like conservation of energy and equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
Right. Like it is reacting to the fact that Sidious is manipulating it. Right. And the fact that the Sith for millennia, based on the old EU, which is most of it's been recanonized at this point, this rule of two, right? Like they've boiled their power down to two. And so like the Force is eventually like, we have to do the same thing for the light side, right? Like it has to happen. And it's not, there's no judgment, there's no whatever, but it's just this idea of Force as an energy.
I also like the idea of the Force having a sense of humor. Like I almost want to make shirts where it's like, of course your granddaughter is the one who takes you out.
There's some wry irony in the Force. I think it's like, all right. So I get two choices in a row because of the snake order.
Sure.
Draft order. So I think these three, Rey, Anakin, and my third choice, we're going to go 1, 2, and 3 in some order. And it was all a matter of like where they fall. And so I'm not saying this because I want to rush past my choice. I'm just more excited about later draft stuff because then it gets real weird. But the third choice, which would have gone 1, 2, or 3, is Luke. Like you have to argue that Luke is a candidate and a major candidate for the Chosen One, because he accomplishes everything that Rey and Anakin accomplished, and is the bridge between those two characters. If you think about it, right? Like he defeats multiple Sith. Right. He defeats his father. He takes his father out of the equation, which is a really horrible way to say this, but he turns him to good. Right. He brings Anakin back to the light side.
He both defeated him and turned him. Right. Like he did both. He defeats Palpatine once. Right. It gets a little more complicated when we talk about the sequel trilogy, but the sequel trilogy brings that into balance. And I'll choose that word by the fact that he did train Rey. And that weirdly, you look at that character in terms of storytelling, and he's in self-exile until the Force is unbalanced again, right? And then he needs to train Rey. And he spends the entire episode 8 not wanting to train Rey, right? Not wanting to do this. Yeah.
And he's forced to do it, right? Like the Force forces him to get back
as
into
much
the game.
as you could argue that Anakin's part of the, he's pivotal in these dark side junctions of the shift, the major shifts in the Force. Luke's there for the big light side junctions, saving his father, to training Rey to make the difference that she makes, all that stuff. It's like, it's and obviously it's the Dave Filoni likely thinks it's Luke, given that there's that Rebels episode where Darth Maul asks, "Is he the chosen one?" to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan says, "Yes, he is the chosen one," and that's said verbatim in Star Wars. So that's almost the best piece of evidence you could present.
It's hard not to take that as the end all be all. And the other thing is so he is still there for he is so pivotal in Rey's training that Rey at the beginning of episode 9 is just seeking Luke out, basically, right? Trying to communicate with Luke. At the end of episode 8, he just says a couple of words to Kylo Ren, "See you around, kid." Right? And we know that is implanted in Kylo or Ben Skywalker throughout episode 9. That once again, with combination with his sister, maybe someone will mention his sister later, possibly, brings him back, right? So he is even somewhat responsible, though I'd say most of it goes to Leia, for bringing Ben back to the light side, right? So we kind of get both those things happening. So that's my argument for Luke. I don't have a ton more to say, but I think it's there.
If the Rise of Skywalker never happened, I'd be on board with both your picks. But because that movie exists in the canon, I'm going to stay with Rey as my pick.
It's real tough. I have to say that there's a lot of
if Rise of Skywalker did not exist, I think you guys would be in the winning category.
What a perfect transition to my number 4 pick.
All right.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you want to know who my chosen one is? Number 4 in the draft.
Let's go. Let's hear it. Let's get weird.
Palpatine.
Oh,
I see. For me, it had to be one of the two at the end there. At the end, being all of the somethings. Yeah.
All right. It gets weird early here for me because I have my other pick that I was like, is that my? Because I pick. The problem with the snake draft is I pick 3, 4, and 9th.
Right, because Obi-Wan at one point, I think, who's to say the chosen one has to be a Jedi at all?
No, right. Using kind of Ben's argument, right? Just the will of the Force personified.
Personified?
Yeah,
sure.
Personified.
Yeah, there we go.
I may have poured myself a little before this, but we'll move forward. So here's my argument. If the chosen one is meant to... And that's the big question. We don't know what the chosen one is actually meant to do. But if the chosen one is meant to bring an end to the Sith, as Obi-Wan argues, right? In episode 3, you weren't meant to join them. You were meant to destroy them. Who destroyed the Sith better than Palpatine?
I mean, that's a stretch, but okay.
I think about it. He brings Anakin into the Sith, who destroys him. Right. The first time. Then he spends all of episode 9, presumably episode 7, 8, and 9, because they're all canon now, trying to bring Rey to the dark side, and who ultimately destroys him, but his own granddaughter that he helped create through science and dark magic.
Right. You could argue he's the most Oedipus since Oedipus, right?
Yeah.
It was always prophesized that his son would, that would be defeated by his progeny or something, and then he spends his whole time trying to stop that from happening, and then it happens anyways.
Exactly.
That sense of humor in the Force.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's within
the irony
his
of the Force.
It's like he's a mastermind, but within his own plans.
Yeah.
Therein arises a threat. It's actually in his own structured narrative that he's created everything. There could become
not once. But twice. He does it to himself twice.
Yeah.
And the rule of 2, which existed since Darth Bane, so for thousands of years, I think. Is that the time frame for Darth Bane? At least 1,000 years?
I think at least
it ends on his watch.
Several hundred. I think it's 600.
Several hundred,
600 years. Several hundred years. It ends on his watch.
Yeah.
The Sith are destroyed because of Palpatine's hubris.
He ran the galaxy for a measly 30 years or 20 years or something.
Yeah.
Hardly an empire. And then...
drop in a bucket.
Yeah, drop in the bucket. He was...
But where's the refined Jedi sight? Where's the sort of how does he exhibit any sort of Jedi behavior, understanding? He seems to say, he does say he understands everything the Jedi have to offer and sort of wants to go beyond that, and it's all about the dark side. But does he really know everything about the Jedi Order? Does he know all like the higher teachings of the masters and grandmasters and all that sort of stuff? Like, I doubt it. I have to think
Empire's resources to gather all those artifacts, and like he probably has read more.
I have to think Jedi, Rey and Luke, and I feel like Anakin and Obi Wan were kind of wartime Jedi, and therefore didn't get to really study like Luke and Rey did. So
you never see their heads in books. Yeah, it was
you never. Yeah, Obi Wan, you imagine did that, but Anakin,
he was just too busy.
He's a field guy.
He was. Yeah. Him with his Satine, like he enjoyed the field missions. I feel like he was like getting out there.
Yeah, but it's just because he was such a natural. He was just like the Jedi, so he just like did stuff.
Yeah,
people should have been writing books about him.
Wow, I mean, we took a lot of characters off the board. Palpatine, that's a stretch. I don't know if I can get there.
I don't know.
There's a lot of like history shaping with that character, but I don't know.
With all of his planning, he took the Sith off the board. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Again, this is where we get to, right? Because it's like the further down you go, the harder it is to make the argument. But I think there's something there. Ben,
I think there's some. There's 2 or 3 really good arguments left.
There are, and I was debating. It's again. I will say this is a reach pick, right? Like this is absolutely. But remember, I'm not
wanted to make this one. It's important, and I'll never look at
these. Are all game changers. Everyone
again. I would start him week 2. I'll trade him week 3. But like it is. I will just say I'm not picking again until.
Listen, these are all better than the last round. The last round is going to get very obscure.
yeah. I got the last pick, so I'm not sure. We'll see if my the person I've penciled in remains there. But Ben,
we might have to go to commercial break before our last 3 picks.
Yeah. Is this brought to you by Draft Kings?
Definitely.
And with the 5th round in the Chosen One draft.
Well, you got me so riled up on Obi Wan. I almost want to pick him, but I don't think I can actually make it.
Oh, really? Wow. Not for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I might be able to make that argument. But, I mean, he was there for Luke and facilitated a lot of stuff.
All right, well, who are you gonna pick?
No. I'm gonna go low hanging fruit. I'm gonna go Leia.
It's so hard not to choose her for number four.
Right,
yeah.
And because I mean, like that line that Filoni wrote, like with Maul and Obi-Wan, was sort of written before the Obi-Wan series was done.
Yeah,
and now you're like, oh wow, like she was a tutor of Ben a little bit, like knew a little bit of him enough to name her child after him, or respected him that much. And then, obviously she's the same blood as Luke. You could say Anakin, like, what if the Chosen One's only job was to be super powerful in the Force and then have kids, and then, because you could also say, like, he gave birth to a dyad with Luke and Leia. I mean, both super powerful in the Force. They never really got a chance to operate next to each other. But performed duties in the galaxy in different silos that really helped save the day, kill the Sith and save the galaxy. You could say the rebellion was Leia, and she was a beacon of hope that really fomented the whole thing. She obviously trained Rey. She probably spent more time training Rey than Luke did. If we're gonna get technical and count,
sure,
things,
100%.
She's the big difference maker. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and if it's like it could be Luke, it could be Leia, right? So, I think she's a fair choice. But I mean, you could almost say, is the Chosen One the dyad of Luke and Leia?
Yeah. No, I'm ashamed that I didn't pick her, but I kind of had to pick Palpatine just for my own sake. But no, I think the fact that like she was integral in not one but 2 rebellions or resistances, right? Like she also, as much as Palpatine took himself out twice, Leia was integral in taking out Palpatine twice as well.
Yeah.
It's a very good pick because she does train Rey. We also know she has a Jedi past. We also know that she's the face and heart of the rebellion. She's been fighting back the dark as well as building the light her entire life, and that's she's sort of made the difference after the Great Jedi Purge and sort of the fall of the Jedi. She made the difference in sort of restoring the light to the galaxy. And so, she that definitely fits into the prophecy.
Yeah, she brings Ben back from the dark side, right? I mean, that's my reading of that is always that she connected, kind of created Han in Ben's mind, and brought him back. And he was
that's wild.
Oh yeah.
That's always my reading of that, is that like that's why she disappears, that she was using the last of her energy to kind of like, talk to her son through her father
with his father.
Which would be heartbreaking for him, and brought him back to the light side, which is integral to Palpatine's ending, right?
Rise of Skywalker, best holiday watch for the Star Wars saga?
It's tough. I will say that's a really great aside. I will say The Force Awakens. So I have some holiday movies that
holiday watch we're talking about. Holiday watch playlist.
Holiday watches. And there are a lot of like mostly like fun, like not your whatever
fun
plus
almost like this is where Return of the Jedi lives. This is where Return of the Jedi thrives.
But I will say, like, for some reason, if you think about it, Empire Strikes Back starts snowy, right? But the fact that
pretty good. It's
pretty good, but it doesn't end snowy. And the fact that the Force Awakens ends snowy is why I watched that movie. And Rey's grabbing a lightsaber with the Force is a moment in Star Wars history that I still tear up every time I watch The Force Awakens. I tear up when Rey uses the Force to grab the lightsaber.
My rankings, guys. I put my
interesting
rankings are up now. I put all my Star Wars, my official,
hey guys,
definitive Star Wars ranking on Letterboxd. So
since this is the new year, do we all at the end of this wanted to re-rank our Star Wars movies?
I'm ready. I have it ready to go. Yeah.
I could use a re-rank.
All right. Well, we'll keep it back in our mind.
That's the end of the show. That's
All right. I like the Leia pick.
Is my pick, guys? Did we do
you get 2 picks in a row?
Leia.
In fact,
I'm pretty jealous of the. Oh wow, 2 in a row.
Yeah, you get 2 in a row.
I'm gonna pick 2 right off the board that I think are good closers for me. I guess I have one more after this, but
No, that's it. These are your last 2 because you started out with Rey. And you last 2. Yeah. So choose wisely.
I gotta go with my all-time fave.
Plo Koon.
Yoda. I think Yoda quite possibly could be the number one sort of shaper of all things destiny and fate in the Star Wars storyline, given that he touches almost every storyline and makes a major difference in the lives of every character, I would say.
Yeah.
Even Palpatine has a vicious rivalry with this Grand Master. I think Yoda is the light and sort of keeps the light he's the one who's unraveling and sort of deconstructing the prophecy as it's happening, as it's unfolding. No one else really has that sort of exterior, outside the box look at everything like he does.
Yep.
To me, that means he's actually trying to figure out the puzzle of what it is in real time, sees the Skywalkers and their actions, but counters their actions, talks to other people, gives them the right knowledge when they need it, unlocks understanding for so many characters, gives us the heroes in Luke, that we have, and obviously Obi Wan and Qui-Gon and everyone else who he's talked to, and sort of shaping those destinies. Anakin obviously had many meditation sessions with Yoda. And to me, he's mentioned in the same sentence as Anakin numerous times, although we've never seen a midichlorian count, as high as Master Yoda's or higher than his. It's like he seems to be the Force incarnate of Star Wars, and to me, that's what is a chosen one other than that. So,
hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, and obviously, telling Luke to destroy the texts was almost like that. To me, that's the destruction of the old ways, almost, and like kind of what. Yeah. It was like, we don't need the old ways if we're going to start anew, and it's all, you must do what you feel is right. That's this sort of mentality. That's Yoda unlocking that for Luke and telling him it's not in the past. What you're hunting isn't in the past. It's actually in these young lives, and they're going to make a difference in the galaxy, the youth.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah.
I such a great pick, and it's again. Part of me almost wants to extend this to another round. We won't, don't worry. Because it's just like the fact that Yoda drops down to number 6 is kind of wild, but like I think there's such a great argument to be made for him he is integral in every single moment. Part of me always thinks back to episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, where if Luke listened to him and didn't go to Cloud City, right? Which is such a dark path to think about in terms of like the characters we love, right? To do that. But from the will of the Force standpoint, like that's what Yoda is. Yoda is just lives the will of the Force.
The Force.
But Yoda very well could have stopped Luke from going to Bespin, or
he could. Oh, absolutely.
Not
but he let him make his own decision.
And so it's like Yoda also knew that it's the will of the Force. But whatever this young man's feeling, it could be just the whatever his instincts are. It's part of the will of the Force. So.
But if Luke listened to him, Luke probably would have completed his training and been able to take down the Empire complete.
Yeah, let's get organized here. Let's train.
Yeah.
Let's go straight to, assassinate Palpatine.
Right. It would have been horrible for the characters we love, so that's why it's good that it doesn't happen.
As soon as Darth Vader realizes that it's not working, he's just going to give it up. And I mean, maybe he would kill them.
I mean, Han is still going to be off to Jabba, and then Leia. You got to assume at some point he would have realized that's the alternate reality. Is he would have realized it's his daughter, and he would have tried to turn her to the dark side. Oof. All right.
Yeah.
Yeesh. All right. Let's not go down that anymore.
Wouldn't have worked, but
that's depressing.
Might be.
Yeah. But the fact that Yoda pops up in episode 8, I think is really meaningful because like Luke still needs his master to remind him of what's needed, right? Like if Yoda doesn't show up, Luke doesn't show up on a crate.
Yeah. Right. I'll even, you mentioned him talking to Luke, in Empire. I'll push it back to his last words to Anakin when when Anakin's like, I'm having these nightmares and these dreams, and he's like centering around a person, like Yoda knows what's going on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And he gives him the right advice. It's like, you need to let go. You need to let go of the people that, of everything. And Anakin obviously said, yeah, that's not going to happen. But it was the right advice. If Anakin had just been like, it's whatever happens to you is the will of the Force and I can't change it, suddenly Palpatine has no power over him.
And Yoda's so humble, he would never identify as the chosen one. Like he would never.
No. He would never. He would always reject that as impossible. Which is what makes
why it's one of the best.
Right. It's such a good argument for him. I mean, I know it's such a cliche. Yoda is the best teacher, but come on, Yoda is the best teacher and the best parent because, like, I think about the Anakin moment, right? Like, he gives Anakin every opportunity to fess up. And that's what a parent does, right? Like because Yoda knows the second he said, "Oh, well, I know you're in love with Padme and
troubling
whatever."
Anakin will not tell
him. Anakin would have shut down, right? Yeah. And that, as a parent, again, of a very young child, so I can't speak to being a teenager, but having been a teenager, it only works if you as a child go to your parent, right? If your parent comes to you and tells you what they think you need to hear, you're not going to hear it as a teenager, right? Yeah. And Yoda is really good with that with Luke too, right? Like, you must do what you feel is right. Or I guess that's Obi Wan. But this idea of providing him with options, opportunities, but letting him make his own decisions and make his own mistakes is really such an important thing. And then the last thing we ever hear from Yoda in episode 8, I guess we hear his disembodied voice in episode 9, but like the last thing we see with him is basically like, failure. The best teacher is
the best. Yeah, the best teacher is.
Right, which is anyway. I love this pick. It's hard for me to pick anyone else after this.
Tough not to,
yeah.
I don't know. And then final pick for me, I'll just take Obi Wan, just because.
Damn you!
If the sequel trilogies wanted to make Obi Wan a sort of like, secret chosen one that had always been there in the story the entire time, it's sort of like. I don't know, it's like a magic trick, like a sort of like he's been in the stories for so long and in misdirection almost that like you always thought it was the Skywalkers, but it's really this guy who taught Luke. It's this guy who, obviously fought off Vader, tried to take out Vader, couldn't take out Vader. Vader maybe being a sort of embodiment of the balance. That stuff's fascinating to me.
The fact that he literally became one with the Force,
right?
Like to actually gain more power, like that's a pretty chosen one move. He's like, well,
that's pretty chosen
Force, but then I became just the living Force.
Yeah,
he wasn't the first to commune, but he was the first one to use it.
like in the middle of like battle.
Yeah.
Just like, and I'm out.
Yeah.
And I'm out. And now I'm going to pwn all of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's incredible. I feel like, everything about Obi-Wan's life just fits into this chosen one mold, given he was an exceptional Jedi. Qui-Gon taught him all the basics. He's also, much like you're saying, where failure the greatest teacher is, like he actually reconciles with the fall of the Jedi, what that means, much like Yoda does. And I think he has these like new learnings from that. And the Chosen One prophecy almost feels like it's hinting at that. It's maybe someone who's has these new learnings that from the totality of the Jedi. And I feel like he has those learnings. He understands what the order represents post the order falling. And that's I think is key towards unlocking something deeper that you need to take down the dark, or at least balance the force. Yeah. So that's kind of.
There's also the sacrifice part, which we kind of hit out a little bit of him becoming one with the force, but like it's hard, right? If we're going to take Star Wars, if we're going to ignore that it was a standalone movie in 1977, right? And bring in everything else that's happened in canon, like you have to believe, if you go back to A New Hope, that he didn't have to die at the hands of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
No.
Not to say like he could have
his choice.
taken Darth Vader, but he could have escaped. He could have done lots of different things. He chose to become one with the Force at that moment, because if you play that game out, like let's say he survived, let's say he was just like, and I'm out, and runs away and gets out on the Millennium Falcon with everyone else, and he's there. If he's just over a radio telling Luke to use the Force, do you think Luke would be like, okay, cool, I'm going to listen to you? No. As the Force goes though, communing, like there's that moment where like that's the only way that Luke destroys the Death Star, which is the only way that the Rebel Alliance is saved, which is the only way that like you can almost do the dominoes falling of like if he didn't choose to become with the Force at that moment, Luke doesn't rise up to work with Leia and Han to defeat the Empire.
Yeah, he even says to Luke, I'm getting too old for these sorts of things. It's because he needs a younger Jedi to step in. And he also knows, after having communed with Qui-Gon, that if he passes into the Force, he'll be able to communicate with Luke anywhere in the galaxy.
Right.
And Luke's also a starfighter pilot who's going to lead this, attack on the Death Star. Who knows if that was foreseen by Obi Wan, but nonetheless, I'm right with you there. That was a major strategy, and that's he gave himself to the Force for that very reason. So it's pretty powerful stuff. Yeah. It's good chosen one sort of evidence.
Yeah, I mean, in my headcanon, it's sort of, you're right. Like he survived his challenge. He actually won his challenge and then had to deal with the burden of it, right? And he did he's in his eyes he failed because he didn't raise the chosen one. The irony if he really was the chosen one the whole time. But then then it's like this slow ascent towards apotheosis, right? He just gets like wiser and wiser, listening, communing with the dead, and then finally, chooses apotheosis, which is my favorite word, and it means becoming one with the gods, right?
And having so heavily damaged Aniken, he almost kept the Force in balance. It could have just been two Dark Lords, fully empowered that are just taking out everybody. But, Anakin is left just a cyborg after that fight. And so it's like he almost created a state of balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, man. You're right, because he
that's really
Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too.
Tonight.
I know, but if you also pull in now like the Qui-Gon series, which is canon, right? We know that Obi-Wan has had 3 real battles with Vader. Yeah. Right? Like the episode 3, what happens in Qui-Gon, and then Obi-Wan, and then what happens in episode 4. And each time he kind of is playing, I mean, the first one is like you said, Grant, which I just love this idea of just like basically takes away Palpatine's toy, to the fullest that that Palpatine wanted.
He could have been an absolute weapon, and I feel like instead you have this sort of this. I guess if you're one who subscribes to the idea that maybe there's more midi-chlorians in his body if he has his full body, that's the sort of he leaves him intact but just half a person, and so that's. Yeah, it's fascinating. That's kind of where I think balance was created in that moment where he couldn't push him into the lava. He just
Well, he had several chances to
yeah.
kill Anakin and didn't do it. Like he could have killed him again in the Obi Wan series. It didn't. I mean, that's a thing where it's like, well, maybe if I kill him, someone else steps in his place or something. But it's like instead, I'll just leave you underpowered and no. And I mean, he just knows he can't take his brother's life. Like he just can't.
Exactly. I mean, Obi Wan is the whitest knight of the white knights in all of Star Wars. That's always my argument, right? Like he can't finish off, and for a good reason. Like he totally could. He's the person.
He also kind of
truly
knew
believes
the
it's
Emperor had to be. He knew the Emperor had to be killed. He was like, we have to kill the Emperor. If we don't, all is lost. Like to Luke, and that's of course it kind of after seeing the Rise of Skywalker, you're just like, well, yeah, and there's so many fans who kind of won't even add the sequels to this sort of equation. But I have to like, I mean, it's in here, it's canon.
It's canon. You gotta do it.
It's part of the entirety of what the saga films are.
Yep.
And obviously, just killing taking out the Emperor was key to restoring, the galaxy, to peace to the galaxy and whatnot. So I feel like, he always knew that, and that's another great piece of evidence that kind of pays off with Rey. If they wanted to make Rey Obi-Wan's granddaughter, I would have been 100% there for that.
Sure.
As a secret sort of like, chosen one.
Yeah, that would have been great. I'll add one more little thing. When Rey finds Anakin's lightsaber, she hears Obi-Wan Kenobi's.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
These are your first steps as well. Yeah.
And on that note, Ben, 8th, your last choice. What do you got?
Guys, we're
stretching
really blown me away. But like each time I hear one of you talk, I'm like, no, that's the real choice. So I don't know. I'm just going to be boring here, and just sit back and enjoy the show. But I guess I'm going to say Ben Skywalker.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, that's a good pick.
That's a great pick. I love that pick.
Fantastic pick.
I had the basic. I'm like, I'm just going to go down the basic lineage here, starting with Anakin and sort of who they've got. And I mean, not a great Jedi presence, right? Petulant child, turns to the dark side immediately, tries to like wave the Sith flag as hard as he can. He actually never becomes a Sith, which is interesting.
It's very interesting.
But it tries to be that person and ultimately can't, and comes around to his destiny to finally defeat the Sith once and for all from the inside. And I mean, that's kind of all I got there. I mean,
and much like Vader's could be an embodiment of balance, being stuck between light and dark. Kylo, I think, represents that to an even stronger degree. I feel like Kylo it really truly is the struggle between light and dark. He is constantly pulled to the light. Yeah,
and tries to be with the dark, but even when he's with the light, he wasn't satisfied there. Like he's like literally stuck in the middle of both of them. He is the balance, but it's like this is why there are no gray Jedi. It's just sort of like if you start dabbling in bad things, you're dark side.
Yeah, you're gonna get pulled over there. Yeah.
Do terrible things, and once you've done that, you're not Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, I mean, his last dying move is to save Rey, right? Who is the one able to destroy Palpatine, which is again one of my favorite moments in Star Wars. Is she defeats Palpatine through defense? That's it.
Right, exactly.
I just love that moment. It is a weapon of defense. Yeah.
Yeah, and she wouldn't have been there without a lot of people, but definitely not without Ben Solo there to help.
Yeah, which is also, if you think about it, like we talk about Luke training and Leia training her. I'm not gonna say that Ben trained her, but Ben Solo is just as impactful in her journey, right? Like her entire mission through half of episode 8 and all of episode 9 is to basically try to bring him to the light side.
Yeah.
It's kind of beautiful that we think that it's like Poe who gets the message from Luke Skywalker, or Rey getting all these teachings from Luke Skywalker. But with Luke Skywalker sort of projecting himself across the galaxy, this sort of like astral projection, and sacrificing himself, Kylo does exactly that at the end of the saga films. He sacrifices himself for Rey. Did he not almost think back to what Luke did to him? That sort of mind-bending sort of projection. Did he not think back to that and sort of understand the teachings from that moment, even though that it embittered him and it was, as sort of to his jest towards him. It's like that's powerful stuff when you think about it. So I love the Ben Skywalker pick.
Because that's why it's one of my favorite moments in Star Wars is when Ben Solo comes back from Kylo Ren. Because you're right, Grant. It's like there was this flood of teachings from the light side he was holding.
Yeah, exactly.
You
feel the cogs turning in his head. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it was like this catharsis where he's like, I can just be good again.
I am the ultimate Jedi for a second. It's just through all of these things. Yeah, I love that, and I love the fact that like we talked about this idea of the dyad prophecy, and is there a connection between the dyad prophecy and the chosen one prophecy? Right? Are they just two sides of the same coin?
A dyad in the Force.
Yeah, it's like I think we talked about this like way back, probably like 2 episodes after our like major our 3-episode
Bender
episode 9. It's just like, is the dyad just the Sith version of the chosen one prophecy? Translated differently or misread, right? Like, and so it makes
or does
sense
it connect to the rule of 2 in some way? Yeah,
right, or the rule of 2, yeah.
Yeah, have they all been misread in some sort of? Yeah, I mean that's the other one which I can't really do, but I was holding out in case you guys all went bonkers with your picks. But I mean, Rey and Kylo, you could sort of like you could pick a dyad as sort of shows.
Yeah,
sure,
for sure.
Yeah. All right. I'm dying to know, Adam. What
Adam,
what do you
let's go.
Oh man. All right. So number 9. So there's some stuff still left on the board. I'll say what I could have gone and didn't go kind of quickly is I could go Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's left there. Qui-Gon's definitely, you can make an argument, but like I'm less excited by that.
He's that first domino. Like he's definitely that first.
He's definitely first domino, but that's like then it's just like domino.
He's the finger that pushes the domino.
Exactly.
Exactly.
He plays an important role, but it's hard to say. If I really wanted to get kind of whatever, I could say like Mace Windu, but I can't quite get there. So I might go wackier here and feel me out. I will say 9th pick. I don't have a well-constructed argument, but I have an argument.
All right.
I'm going to go with, this might be from reading the little golden Star Wars books to my child every night, and she's been obsessed with the sequel trilogy books. Okay. I'm going to say FN2187, also known as Finn.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As our chosen one. And hear me out.
Okay.
Baby. Again, late round draft pick. This is where I'm picking my kicker, right? Like I'm just filling out my roster.
Yeah.
Sure.
But there's an argument that could be made, and the fact that we do find out that Finn is Force sensitive, right? We do find that out in episode 9. And what's fascinating about this is the only main character in a Star Wars movie that's a Force user that's not part of some legacy bloodline, right? Like every single person we meet is part of this, either the Palpatine bloodline or the Skywalker bloodline. And to me, both of those bloodlines are tainted in some way or another. And that we get this pure, maybe virgins of the Force, meaning like a Force user, our first main Force user after the board has been wiped clean, right, of all Palpatines and all Skywalkers in terms of this just magnificent battle that's just basically these two families warring to basically destroy each other. And who's left at the end? We get a Palpatine who is great. She's wonderful, but she's been fighting the dark side her entire life. She's pulled to the dark. And then we just have the first kind of Force user that might be the first student in the new Jedi Order, which is Finn, right? No last name, no connection to any legacy that we know of, is just a pure form of the Force who may be the kind of the new blood of what the Jedi will be moving forward. Are you
saying he's destined to kill Rey and then complete the prophecy?
I mean, maybe. Now we're talking about like episodes 10, 11, and 12. Sure. Not that I love Rey, by the way. Rey's one of my favorite Star Wars characters. I'm not wishing her ill. Maybe.
But still, I'm just
right, because
he is a Palpatine.
That's a pretty fun. That's a fun trilogy, honestly. As if the dark side does creep back in Rey, and There's only one person, and then maybe the person who's best fit to take her out is a sort of the best warrior amongst their ranks, who is Finn. And Finn has now had all his Jedi teachings, and he's like, there can no longer be Skywalkers or Palpatines. Yeah, they have to go. So
imagine
this galaxy
him leading the Jedi Order.
At peace. Yeah,
but think about what we learn about old Jedi stuff, even in the Old Republic and everything else, is that Jedi are supposed to have no attachments to their lineage, right? They're taken from their families at a young age so they don't remember. Every main character we've seen in the Star Wars knows who their connection is part of that bloodline, and that is a problem, right? And Rey and Finn, I should say, has no connection. He doesn't know. He'll never know who his parents are, who any lineage is, and he's just a pure, being of the Force.
Yeah. Well, depends how thorough.
Well, he does seem Force sensitive in The Rise of Skywalker, and I think he does kind of foresee some pivotal things.
He's definitely that's definitely what they're going for. And that's a good pick.
I'm trying to find evidence for you in the sequels, and that was the one storyline that I felt could have been
it's
reconstructed.
It's real hard.
Really hit.
There's an
hard
episode out there where we just talk about things we could have done with Finn.
Right, Finn could have been really hard hitting at the end.
I know. And this is me wanting to reclaim Finn. It was just such a great character, and oh boy, I love that they enforced
Finn could have had a really fun awakening in the Force storyline, and that almost like him after being sensed by Kylo in the first film. Started there almost where he does.
Oh, 100%.
Just being able to wield a lightsaber is, I think, proven. Like JJ in the first film, I think, does carry forward the premise that he very well could use the Force.
Yeah,
he's Force sensitive, given that Kylo senses him. He wields a lightsaber at the end. We know that it's that weapon takes some level of proficiency to wield.
Yeah, I do love that idea. I love the idea that. I do not mind. I've never really minded that Rey is a Palpatine. I kind of like that idea. There's this nice little ballet of it's very much a space opera, right? You have one character, a light side user born of the dark, and you have a dark side character born of the light, right? That's very operatic. And
it's
then
contrasty.
It's very much. It's so Star Wars that people get so angry at it. It drives me wild because it is
it's actually
the most Star Wars thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
But then you have this other character who's no, I'm just, I it'd be amazing to watch someone just kind of go through his journey or their journey through the Force, not being part of this larger legacy, which would have been wonderful to watch that.
Yeah. And it still could be if they
still could, for sure.
Go back in the fold, because I would.
Or what does it mean to be a Force wielder without the schools of thought? Sith or the Jedi? That's kind of the story.
Yeah. Discovering his own path. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a weird one, but again, choice to pick 9.
Yeah,
there's something there.
Love it. No, it's a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, I would have done a lot more and had a heavier hand with Finn, but they because I have no sense of subtlety when it comes to thinking about script writing or shows I want to watch it. But so
he wields lightsaber in one hand, holds blaster in other for the entirety of the third film.
Just deflecting shots and taking shots. That's pretty much it. In white armor.
Yeah. I think we're seeing the same film. I love it.
Right. Great. But no, so for that reason, I really commend. I actually like how subtle a touch they used with Finn having this Force sensitivity, and you really have to look to see it, but it's there over and over again. It just leaves me wanting more, which is not always.
Yeah.
But it's really kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool how they did that.
It doesn't bother me how they did in episode 9. It's just one of those things where it's just it was Grant, as you mentioned, it was kind of set up in episode 7 and then abandoned in episode 8 because they had other focuses.
I could have used another little drop in 8,
just
something.
And then if you're going to bring it back up in episode 9, you that's all you can do, or else it's going to feel, Ben, as you mentioned,
that's the only argument where you could say that the two directors were veering away from each other. That's the one argument that I can actually get behind, where I'm
that's kind of the only one.
The Finn through line. JJ is trying to restore the Force sensitivity there, whereas it's totally vanished in the 8th film.
I know. It felt kind of too late at that point to bring it back.
Those are some pretty noticeable swerves, yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't mind. I think you're right, Grant. That's really the only thing that I butt up
That's
against.
it. The other arguments are terrible. I hear other arguments.
Yeah,
where it's
I will
like,
say,
yeah, but JJ didn't follow this through. I'm like, actually, he did. Did you watch the same movie I watched?
Exactly. It's all just none of it. It's there if you want to read into it. Like if you're that determined to to make that decision, you can. The Rose stuff I think could have been a little better, but like
if Rose and Finn had a real romance in the third and had a lot of screen time together, and they were sort of really the heart of this new resistance movement, that could have been fun.
Yeah, but again, it just we to go back to it better before. It would have been great if they had maybe a plan from the jump about what the whole the whole overarching idea was. But hey, picking nits.
Because after The Force Awakens, I think Finn is a fantastic pick. I feel like, if we were back in 2015 or whatever, and it was just like Force Awakens just came out, we were having this discussion then, I'd be like, good pick, like great pick.
Wild.
He helps shepherd Rey towards the light and give her the confidence and that voice that she needs, when she's having dark thoughts. Like, he does a lot of work in there.
He does. Yeah. It's kind of wild. We're kind of getting pretty close to the 10-year anniversary of Force Awakens.
I think Finn's story alone it calls for the need of a sequel trilogy, in that we need some resolution with Finn. We need to understand what his trajectory is. Like, I still don't know what his trajectory is.
He's the character I'm most interested to see in his story. And I love Rey. Like, Rey is one of my favorite Star Wars characters, but I kind of like know, and not know, but like, there's not like, I don't know. I know. Yeah. And again, any screenwriter can please prove me wrong. It's not like this is the only way to do it, but I have very little questions about what her path is in the galaxy. Sure. And Finn's just wide open. His story is still wide open to me.
Yeah. After touching the dark, it's always going to creep back in her life. We know that story. It's And obviously she's also a sort of white knight figure, a messiah sort of figure. But yeah, Finn is. I really want to see what maybe if it is true, and there are rumors that they are going to do a story set just after the sequel trilogy. I would love to see Finn involved. I think that'd be super fun.
Yeah, definitely. And we do know from the summer Lego Star Wars summer vacation movie that Finn is going to go after the events of Rise of Skywalker to go search out new members for a new Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And I would watch the heck out of that.
That's so cool. Finn's a fascinating character to me because, like,
be a great
if you really want to sort of prognosticate where he could go, I have to think he is going to be this sort of like guardian of Rey's new temple and sort of, but be a jack of all trades, maybe, like, use a blaster, use a lightsaber, use the Force, but also just be this, a staunch hero for whatever war is up ahead. Given its Star Wars.
He is the purest of heart. I feel like of all the characters of Star Wars, and I love that fact that he comes from being a stormtrooper. I mean, to the point where, like, again, my daughter, she's obsessed with the Force Awakens little golden book. That's like I read it every night. Mm-hmm. And like in that, the illustrations show him as FN2187 until he like changes. And she's 2.5, so she points at everything, saying, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" So I just name all the characters. We talked about we talked about the bounty hunters a couple weeks ago, but she points, and when he's in stormtrooper garb, if I say that's Finn, she goes, "No, it's FN2187." And the second he's wearing post jacket, then that's Finn. Which is like it's such like through the eyes of children, right? Where you just watch that, you're like, oh, that is like you watch him kind of change into Finn, right? Like after that moment, and just coming from being a stormtrooper to being like the most purest of heart in Star Wars is kind of a beautiful thing.
You could say he has the sort of Vader like transformation in his first scene, right? Like he sheds the armor and chooses the light, like, and that's how we meet him, which is kind of a cool.
And if somehow there's going to be a resurgence of stormtroopers or some sort of enemy force in a sequel story, who better to uncover those armies or those troopers than a former trooper, a soldier like Finn? He's a great sort of spy character who can go out there and maybe identify what could be a new army. Yeah, he's a great character, a great as catalyst for a new story. set after the sequel trilogy. So, yeah, he would be fun to watch. I would love to see more stories. John Boyega is such a fun actor to watch.
So good.
I thought he was just getting started. Like, he brought so much energy to the role where I was like, where's the series after this? Where's like that character just got its legs like right at the end of the films there that you almost just want more. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm having thoughts about like what a sequel like First Order could look like, and just like more damaged and like more scrappy armor, and like it's just a remnants, and they're just like a militia, a roving militia looking for a purpose, and they're much smaller.
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
Well, I always think of like the old EU where you get the uglies, which were all the spaceships that the rebels, which are kind of like together from like TIE fighters, X-wings, and like just like this real like militia, just really like half of them are missing parts of their armor. They're wearing like cutout helmets, like just like real, just like yeah.
It could be kind of cool.
It could be. There's definitely something there.
Yeah, they'd have to change their name from the First Order to something else because they wouldn't look very orderly. But
no, yeah.
Anyways,
well, if it could be a larger Mandalorian war that happens in the sequel trilogy, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be that.
I don't. I can't imagine them going back to the Stormtrooper well again.
It just depends how close to it, and I feel like they would milk. Yeah. Well, we have to change the remnants again. It's just an excuse to have Stormtroopers every once in a while drop in, and I can see doing it. It's not necessarily what I want. I would prefer they go a different way.
But you're right. But it's tough. Like,
cool.
Yeah, there's definitely something there.
That was almost the series. Like it's almost like his the premise for his character is almost the perfect premise for like a series, which is a Stormtrooper, like a Stormtrooper series. And, I would argue they wouldn't do that just given that Finn represents that in the saga films, that it's kind of no need to do that story. But that's kind of why in Andor we're getting the sort of like security officer turned maybe Imperial officer. We're not really diving into Stormtroopers. It's not really a thing. But kind of would be a fun show, maybe. Like Finn,
there's something there.
Finn still, operating as a Stormtrooper might be a fantastic show. John Boyega still looks incredibly young, but obviously I don't know. That's we're way past that character at this point. But
no, actually I'm just thinking like the Taika Waititi still looking for an idea. Like if it would be a better series than a movie. But like he would make a laugh out loud funny Stormtroopers like series. Making it like very serious and doing some things, but also having it be like very like Jojo Rabbit sort of like making fun of themselves as they're because they're space Nazis and all that, and just sort of like the hypocrisy of it. And there could be some fun.
You could almost do that in terms of like also like the Battlestar Galactica series. Like I always think about that show. I always connect to when they would cut back to I think they're called the Viper pilots would cut back to their like barracks, and they're like playing cards and just like that would be kind of awesome to watch, like Stormtroopers going through that, but also like off, like in their barracks, like what are they, like humans? And then you could get a little more. I mean, it would be definitely a dark series, right? Even if you did some comedic stuff, because you're dealing with basically space Nazis. But there's something there. Yeah.
From a lot of different aliens and whatnot.
Yeah.
But tortured and pressured and
conscripted,
dog eat dog, and fighting to go up the ranks. So
and we've seen it in the comics. They've done good jobs with it, like the Han Solo Imperial Cadet series.
Sure,
was good. Yeah,
nice. All right, well, we would diverge there a little bit, but worth it. I love that the person we talked about was Finn. Makes perfect sense.
You're welcome.
That was actually I learned something today, like I always do, you guys, but I learned a lot today, and really made me think about all these characters in a whole different way. And now I got to go buy an Obi Wan Kenobi lightsaber, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you do.
Or 3. Anywho, that was great. We will be back soon with another episode of Core World News. I'll say next week. It could be this week. We don't know. We'll figure it out. We have Bad Batch coming next week.
Bad Batch.
From tomorrow. So maybe we'll just hit you there. Maybe we'll have one in the middle. It'll be a wee surprise. But thanks very much for listening. Happy New Year, everyone. May the Force be with you.
This is Grex Kondak signing off. For the latest breaking news, follow @CoreWorld News on Twitter. and Instagram. Thank you, and good night.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.